topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we always bring you the finest experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Before we get started, we did this in another one of our markets yesterday. We're going to do it again. We have got our wonderful producer, Rebel, is getting ready to get hit by Francine, and that's not her mother. That's the big hurricane down there in South Louisiana. And we just want to keep her in our prayers and hope she stays safe. We didn't even know if we were going to be able to do today's show or not. But we're glad she's here and we'll keep her in prayer. Let's get started. God, we've got such a great show today. This is probably one of the few of our experts, and this is our 14th year. This is one of the few experts can take a bad situation and turn it into a wonderful situation. Let me introduce you. We have two experts with us today. The Federal Tax Law Group. We've got Ryan Campos. He's the CEO of Federal Tax Law Group. And Rachel Picarelli. Good German name. She's an enrolled agent, and she has got so much knowledge. Good afternoon, both of you.
Hey,
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
We're doing well. Listen, we're going to, first of all, let's tell everybody about Federal Tax Law Group, what you do, and about both of your backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of us joining us today that haven't listened before, we're Federal Tax Law Group. So we're a tax resolution firm, and we specialize in helping individuals as well as businesses with back tax issues. So we help a lot of people file their back taxes, whether it's preparation, bookkeeping, or things of that sort. And we also help with negotiating the balances due. So once everything is filed and we figure out the total amount due by the clients, we can actually negotiate to place either the business or the individual into one or a combination of the IRS programs. And that can include the offer and compromise, as many have heard of, where we can settle the debt for a smaller amount. There's a penalty abatement where we negotiate penalty and interest that's been assessed. And then there's installment agreements where we structure affordable payments, and then non-collectible status, which is a great program for individuals on fixed incomes, where we can actually put a hold on collections and payments, and eventually we utilize the statute of limitations to pretty much run the balances until they owe nothing. So in a nutshell, that's what we do here.
Well, we're already getting phone calls already. This is from Martin. Martin, you didn't tell us where you're from, but he wants to know if your company assists on a person gets audited.
Go ahead, Rachel. Since you hit the
yes.
Did you hear it, Rachel?
Yeah, I think I heard you say he was asking if we can assist in an audit.
Yes, in the IRS audit.
Yes, we most definitely can assist taxpayers in audits. That's usually one of the most common times that they reach out for help, just because it's a very extensive process. It does take a lot of documentation to support actual figures that are possibly under review with the IRS. So as long as we can get the cooperation and the documentation needed, we can definitely assist in an audit.
We just got a text from New York City. This is Robert in New York City. Wants to know. Oh, this is like the question we got in our other market yesterday about, can they come after my family members if I'm behind on my taxes?
As far as family members, usually the person they can come after would be your spouse. So normally many people that are married are filing jointly. So in cases like that, the tax debt or burden is shared by both parties. So they can definitely come after that individual family member. As far as cousin, uncle, brother, things of that nature, normally they're not going to go after those type of people. But the thing is, as far as children, if you do have assets such as real estate or properties that you own that you do intend to pass down to your kids, they can essentially come after their assets that would be inherited by them if things aren't resolved. So if you owe, say, $200,000 or $1 million to the IRS, and you have a property that's worth $1 million that you wanted to give to young Johnny once you retire or once you pass, and if you have an unresolved tax lien there on your property, the IRS will go ahead and basically have first right to that if there's no additional lenders or anybody else that has a mortgage on that. So they can come back and demand that they get paid first before your son, daughter, or whoever the heir to that property would be. So they can't go after them as far as wage garnishments, levies, or things like that regarding the tax debt, but they can definitely go after assets, as I mentioned.
Can you write off tax debt? In other words, if you're declaring bankruptcy, can that be added? The monies you owe in taxes?
It can if you're going through a certain type of bankruptcy. So
Okay.
if it's just a basically reorganization of debt, then no. Normally they're going to want that paid back. So if it's a Chapter 11, but if you're doing Chapter 7, then in many cases that can be written off.
Rachel,
Rachel, or as far as BK, and most of the clients we do help, we try to help avoid bankruptcy. But if there are different debts that are owed, we wouldn't recommend anybody just declare bankruptcy just because they have tax debt. But if there's also a big slew of problems like credit card debt, maybe other repos, bad car debts, and things like that, then sometimes it makes sense for a client to do that. But if it's just a simple tax matter or tax debt, in many cases we have alternative solutions offered directly through the IRS that aren't going to have the same negative consequences as a bankruptcy, where it stays with you for 7 years or however many years it remains on your credit and kind of haunts you for a little bit.
You know, Rachel, yesterday we had a banner back and forth. It is when these people receive that first letter from the IRS, and I'm going to bring this up because I hear with all these new IRS agents that it's not like it was 2 years ago when the pandemic, or 3 or 4 years ago when the pandemic was here. I heard these new agents are really going after people. And those people who stick that envelope with the IRS on it in the drawer are really hurting themselves by not contacting, for example, Federal Tax Law Group. Are you seeing that?
Yes, so we're actually seeing an influx in collection notices being issued. When the pandemic came around, the IRS kind of put a pause on a lot of collection activity due to the pandemic. It's taken some time for them to get back to the normal procedures, but in the recent 30 or 60 days, as mentioned on another show that we were talking about, we are seeing LT11s, excuse me, which are, final collection notices letting people know that the IRS is intending to levy your bank accounts and garnish your wages, but we have not seen those notices since pre-COVID days.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just been recently that the IRS is really just getting back into the swing of things with collections. You're going to see more of those notices. You're going to see more bank levies. You're going to just see more aggressive collection tactics now that they're considering the pandemic being done for the most part. COVID is still lingering. People are still getting sick, but as far as getting back to the day to day and getting back to the normal operations of the collections unit, they are really moving fast track to get things going again.
So I've been doing this long enough, and we've had, with all of our markets across the country, we've had a lot of tax relief companies. And the feedback that I get is this is really hard on the person that the IRS is coming after. It's hard on their family. It puts a strain on relationships. But I've noticed, though, if a person will pick up the phone, for example, Federal Tax Law Group at 800-881-7659, you can relieve a lot of that pressure when they sign with you and they no longer have to talk to the IRS anymore. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. So once they contact us and they actually hire us, once we file a power of attorney, that takes a lot of that stress and burden off of their plate as far as having to deal with the IRS. It's a strenuous process, even for professionals that have done this for many years, like Rachel. It takes time, and that's knowing what you're doing. So for somebody that has little to no experience with the IRS, it could almost seem virtually impossible trying to deal with them or submitting financials or any other documentation that they need to submit in order to get some sort of positive resolution. Not only that, though, most people don't have the time. They're working during normal IRS hours. They're at work. They're trying to make a living, support their family. So once they reach out to us, we can take that burden off their plate and go ahead and handle it in the most efficient way possible. And then from there, we can help structure and work with them to gather whatever information we need. And if there's documents they need to provide to us in the evening or on the weekends or whenever they're home and available, they can do so while our experts that are dealing with the IRS on a day-to-day basis, they can handle that for them. It's kind of like an attorney that's always in court. They're going to be there for you. You don't have time to be in court, but the attorneys do, and that's their job. So that's why it's very beneficial to hire a professional that not only knows what they're doing, but then has relationships with the IRS agents, knows the IRS law in and out, and is going to get you the best possible result at the end of the day.
I also want, Ryan, people to know that you also handle businesses too, not just individuals.
Correct. Yeah. So we deal with corporations, sole proprietors, large businesses to small, even people that are just pretty much a one-man show. So it doesn't really matter the size of your business. We can help you out. And again, there's different programs available to assist individuals and businesses.
Well, I tell you what, we just got notice from our producer that Francine is now a cat too. Hope we stay on the air. So, you know what, Ryan, something else, when you've got a business, try getting a hold of the IRS. You guys have like an inside number to them, but if a business just call, you could be on hold for hours.
That's right. We do have direct lines dedicated for tax professionals, and even lines where we are able to get in even quicker than just the normal line for professionals, where it's an added service that you pay for as a tax company, but it really gives us a quick in. So we're able to get in, handle a lot more clients, and solve a lot more problems for different individuals and businesses. So we're a lot more efficient at the end of the day, opposed to a regular individual or business that's trying to deal with the IRS on their own. And I'm sure that can be something that's frustrating for
Yes.
people. And waste a lot of time, and time is money for them.
Exactly. And, I want people also to understand customer service is so important to you. I know I was telling you yesterday that I was looking through Yelp at tax relief companies, and a lot of them, Ryan, have really bad feedback, mostly about the company taking their money, but hardly ever getting back to them.
That's a common thing you'll see. And unfortunately, most people, when they're upset, they go to post. It's more likely that they'll have a good experience and not post than anything. But we do pride ourselves in making sure we're handling our customers' calls trying to get them into the best possible resolution. And also at the beginning, really setting realistic expectations and just letting them know that throughout this process, it's going to be a team effort. There's going to be a lot of documentation that we need from them in order to keep the ball rolling forward. So we try to make sure that that line of communication is always open. And from my over 15 years experience in the business, I think that's probably one of the biggest things with clients is the communication, because what can happen in cases like this, things are submitted to the IRS, and then it seems like things go dark for a little bit. And it's not that nobody's doing anything. Reality is that the IRS is processing things. They may take 3 months, 6 months to process a return. So there may be times where it doesn't seem like much is happening, but there is stuff going on in the background. So that's why we make sure to communicate with clients. And we found that most of the times when clients know and there's the communication and they know, okay, this is what the next steps are, this is why it's taking a little bit longer, they're a lot more receptive. But I think the problem is when sometimes companies have a lack of communication and they're not expressing to the clients what's going on. That's when clients start to get upset, afraid, and don't really know what's going on and feel like they've been abandoned. So we pride ourselves in making sure to keep the highest level of communication and customer service to make sure that our clients know what's going on throughout the process. And at the end of the day, we resolve this for them in a timely fashion. Because at the end of the day, that's our goal as well as the client's goal.
You know, I got to tell you, people, unless you've ever been in that position before about owing the IRS money, you know, when you get this letter in the mail and they tell you how much you owe, many times that number is wrong, isn't it?
It's the number's not gonna essentially be wrong, but what taxpayers are paying attention to is the bottom line tax that's due at the bottom of a tax return. So once that tax return is filed with a balance due, there is going to be penalties and interest that are added to that principal tax, which is going to increase the balance due. And that's probably the difference in what people are looking at.
But they don't know what all your write-offs are.
Well, if you're talking about, if a business or a 1099 employee or someone with a Schedule C, a sole proprietor, has income reported and the IRS somewhat files a tax return for you, they're
Yes.
going to file it at the highest rate. They're
Exactly.
going to just take your income into consideration and they're not going to create expenses for you or even allocate expenses on the tax return, which in turnaround is going to generate a large tax bill. So you do have the option to file an original return behind that process that the IRS does. And that gives you the option to report your income, but also report all of the expenses that you're entitled to, which essentially is going to, reduce the tax liability significantly.
This is Norm in Atlanta, enjoying the show. If I owe money to the IRS and I don't have the money to pay them, can you negotiate the penalties? As well as I'm in Atlanta. Here.
So it sounds like he's asking if we can negotiate the penalties. Also, you mentioned a couple of things. Yes, also if he can't pay them, if we can negotiate the penalties. If you can't pay them, we can do a couple of things. So yes, we can negotiate penalty instead of being assessed to it. So depending on the situation, one good one for everybody out there that may find themselves owing for the first time is a first-time penalty abatement. So that's something that's readily available, and we can get that for just about anybody that may qualify for that. Now, as far as doing years subsequent to that, then at that point we need to start showing that there's justifiable cause for owing, or that there was some sort of special circumstances, not simply that they didn't file or that they didn't pay. Sometimes you may have areas, for example, that suffered hurricane, or you have areas that went through bad fires or things like that, and maybe that's the reason they weren't able to file on time or didn't pay. So many times the government will see those as, I guess they call them emergency or emergency relief or something to that effect, and they will allow for us to participate in penalty relief in circumstances like that. So there's different circumstances, but as far as the most, I'd say widespread that most people would probably qualify for would be a first-time penalty abatement.
And can they seize your bank account without even notifying you first?
The IRS has to notify you. There is a series of collection notices that go out. I know yesterday we were discussing that one of the biggest issues with taxpayers is that they are not up to date with their mailing address. So the IRS could be issuing the series of notices and they're just going to an address that they no longer reside at, or a PO box that has been closed. So in the IRS's eyes, as long as they're generating and mailing out those notices, they are considering you to be informed. If you reach, the certain series of the letters, which the end one would be, your LT11 that we were touching on earlier, then after that, they do have the right to, would be levy your bank account, basically freeze the money in your bank account, and or contact the employer to garnish your wages.
I guess most people want to know if the IRS can also seize your house.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit yesterday with our other market. Now, they definitely can. And I explained that we have seen that happen in the past. So one client we had, it was actually a vacation home or a second home that they had. And probably did the same thing a lot of people do. They just slide the envelopes and letters into their desk and don't really mind them or pay them much attention. But what had happened was the IRS had sent their series of collection notices. They had gone pretty much through their full process, and they had actually gone to the point where they actually had already seized the home. So they may have had physical possession of it, but with the county records, the IRS had already legal ownership of it. So very important when you get those types of notices to make sure you contact somebody. But they definitely can. In most cases, you'll see a lien placed against the home. So if they were to, if there's no other liens against the property, like mortgages or things of that sort, then they can much more quickly seize that home. Now, if there was other mortgages already in place, then in essence, they would have to go ahead and pay off those other mortgages if they're in second or third position. So there's different ways that it can go or happen, but it can definitely take place. So that's why if you receive lien notices or intent to levy, we definitely recommend to take action before it gets too late and contact somebody like ourselves so we can go through your case, see exactly where you're at, and then take the preventative measures. Because I'd say 95% of the time we can go ahead and get in front of the situation before it ever gets to that point where you have to worry about them taking your home or anything of that nature.
Rachel, what's the difference between a person representing themselves before the IRS versus hiring your company?
The biggest difference, I would say, is the knowledge. Going into it on your own, if tax resolution is not your specialty, the IRS could essentially run circles around you because they know that you're not well trained or even well educated on what the collection process is. So hiring a tax professional, and as always, you could call us and we could do a free consultation to see if we can help you. It would be better to hire representation just because this is what we've been doing for years, many years. We know the collection process in and out. We know what we should and shouldn't, say to them, or how they are basically taxpayer rights, how your taxpayer rights should be respected, not violated. And in a sense, if a IRS agent thinks that they have free range to do what they want, then they will take it as far as they can. They'll get as much information that they can. They'll get you to give up 2-3 years of bank statements. Back yourself into a corner and start explaining situations or explaining things that you have that essentially wouldn't be necessary to achieve final resolution. So it's just better to go ahead and hire a tax professional that's going to protect you, going to do what's in your best interest, and give you that peace of mind. I always tell my clients that I'm here as a therapist too. I am a tax professional, but my team of enrolled agents, tax attorneys, we're here for therapy too. We listen to their problems. We really make sure they're well educated, that they are, feeling comfortable with our process, and that they're just being heard. A lot of people are very stressed, very scared, and so they just want to be heard. They want to talk to someone that can give them the comfort that we are well trained, we are well equipped to do what is needed to resolve the case, to keep the IRS off your back, to keep your assets safe. I wouldn't suggest doing it on your own. I know there's a lot of people, and I've had clients on my own. I've had clients personally that called the IRS thinking that they can do it on their own, and turn around, call us right back and said, I screwed up big time. I need your help. So it's like, okay, sometimes you just got to let them learn on their own, but you wouldn't go into court, without a lawyer, would you?
Right.
And because
you
the
wouldn't
court
go into
system,
a gunfight with a squirt gun.
yeah, you wouldn't go into a gunfight with a knife or a squirt gun. You're going to go
Right.
well equipped, well trained. And that's where, Federal Tax Law Group, our team of professionals, I run a really well equipped team that can really handle a lot of complex and specialized cases. So give us a call. I mean, there's no call that we're going to turn down. We can definitely take a look into the situation and see what we can do.
Well, the phone number is 800-881-7659. It's 800-881-7659. What is your website address?
It's www.federaltaxlawgroup.com.
Well, one of the reasons we have this show is it used to bug me. People would go to the Yellow Pages when they finally, they had an emergency and they needed somebody, and they would choose whoever had the largest ad. Well, we don't have really Yellow Pages anymore, but we see people doing the same thing. Well, who's got the nicest website? I just want people to know that Federal Tax Law Group, I totally recommend them. And what you should do, I'm going to give you this number one more time. You might have a relative or a friend who's going through this process with the IRS. Give them this number. It doesn't matter where they even live. Phone number is 800-881-7659. And guys, thank you so much for always doing such a great job.
Thank you for having us, Stephen.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Stay safe. See you soon. I love these guys. Federal Tax Law Group, 800-881-7659. If you'd like to come on the show, you have a company and you'd like to have your own show, give us a call here at 954-336-3767. We have the whole country. This is our 13th year. Anyhow, thanks. Hold on. We're going to go to break and we're going to come right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.